5 finale episodes really show us that we're getting closer to episode 3. It's getting a little bit darker. Anakin's getting a little darker. You can see in his expressions that he's starting to question things a bit. Ahsoka's definitely starting to question things a little bit.
You're not helping.
And she is becoming like Anakin more and more every day. And I think that's interesting.
I am not deceiving you. I would assume Ventress is, but I can't be sure. My sense is clouded.
Clouded by the dark side. These things are Padawantana.
If she hadn't have been Anakin's Padawan, I think she would have taken a completely different journey.
Your Padawan status will be stripped from you, and you shall forfeit all rank and privileges within the Grand Army of the Republic. Henceforth, you are barred from the Jedi Order.
Welcome to A Long Time Ago. My name's Martin, and once again, as always, with me is my cousin Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Hello, I'm all right, thanks. You?
Yeah, good. It's been a busy week. We've had lots on this week, haven't we?
Really have, yeah. We're getting busy, aren't we?
Yeah. We keep getting invited on these lives, which is absolutely fantastic. But we have limited time in our normal lives to do what we need to do. Yeah,
not happy.
no. But today we're going to be carrying on with our, or should I say, once again, my top 11 Clone Wars episodes. This is part 7. And today I have chosen season 5, episode 20, The Wrong Jedi. Just a kind of a quick recap. I think in the last episode, part 6, we talked about season 5, episode 18, which was The Jedi Who Knew Too Much, which was the second part of a 4-part arc. This is part 4 of the same arc. So just to make things complicated.
Yeah. Exactly. I've missed the first part and the third part.
Yeah. Did you not get to watch the third part?
I've seen them before.
Okay,
I have seen them before.
Excellent.
But, yeah.
Let's start talking about The Wrong Jedi. As always, I'll go through my bullet points of why this has reached my top 11. Before I start, though, Adam, what did you think?
As always, yeah, throw to me. Yeah, it's a great episode. And just to let everyone behind the curtain, before we came on air, if you like, Martin did tell me that this is his favorite episode, and you can see why. It's good fun. It's what I love, I think, most about Clone Wars is the development, the character growth of Anakin, and I think this is one of those episodes where you really see that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I think he's got the most character development in the whole series of people within the original. Well, not even the original. Sorry, within the movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, great episode. I remembered pretty quickly who framed Ahsoka.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your Anakin point, I think this episode, probably more than any other episode, gives you such more, as we always say when we're talking about these episodes, meat on the bone.
Meat on the bone.
when it comes, character development, depth, more story as to why Anakin had such mistrust of the Jedi Council. When we get to Revenge of the Sith, it just adds another layer of development to that aspect of the storyline. So I love this episode, and you're right. I think if I was nailed down, what's your favorite episode, this would probably be it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll do is, as always, I'll run through bullet points. As you can imagine, being my favorite episode, there's quite a lot of notes I've done for this, so we'll kick on. There is a real history behind this episode, to be honest with you. When us Star Wars fans heard when they brought the Clone Wars movie out in 2007 that Anakin all of a sudden had an apprentice, we were like, what? We've seen the prequels. We never saw an apprentice. She wasn't even meant to be in it. What's going on? So we were all very, very kind of, what's going on here? Is this going to be weird? Is this going to be rubbish? And over that time, I think right at the beginning, I think it would be fair to say we weren't huge fans of Ahsoka, but
whiny little brat.
Yeah. But as the seasons went on, I think I've said this before, she became, and still is now, one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. I absolutely think she's a brilliant character. But the question back in the day always was, well, if we didn't see her in Revenge of the Sith, she must have been killed.
I don't think it's a mystery that I've always been a bit more in the Ahsoka lives camp. And George has been very full on in the Ahsoka dies camp. I think I've said that before, if not revelation for you. So I thought expelling her from the Jedi Order is a good movement towards that end. And we stand on that bold new frontier for her. You know, things have changed. She is not the same character.
Ahsoka bursts onto the scene as this snippy Padawan in the Clone Wars movie.
A youngling? And who are you supposed to be?
I'm Ahsoka. Master Yoda sent me.
She, rightfully so, earned the nickname Snips. She had an opinion about everything, and she was very green, as they would say.
You're stuck with me, Sky Guy.
What did you just call me?
And she was definitely the sidekick. And now, fast forward to season 5, and we have this major turn, and who knows what's next for her.
Forgive me if I'm not optimistic.
We obviously discover that she ends up leaving the Jedi, not the Jedi Council, sorry, the Jedi in general.
Yeah.
Stop being a Padawan and just going off into the world to do her own thing. And when that happened, it was, for me, I could speak for me, I was absolutely shocked. I didn't think they'd go down that route at all. And it just felt perfect for me anyway. I felt, wow, that's the perfect route to go down, because it was just too obvious that she had to die.
What came up? Do you remember any of like the theories?
Well, I mean, there was theories like, you know, she was one of the Jedi that was killed during Order 66 off screen, or she was killed by Darth Sidious in behind the scenes between episode 2 and 3, because she was getting, you know, too close to Anakin. Too close to Anakin, and she could be someone who could stop him from being able to be turned to the dark side, etc., etc. So there's lots of things like that. You know, I think I heard and read Bounty Hunter might kill her. Boba Fett might have got her at some stage, but yeah, no, it was a nice surprise when I saw this episode, and she just decided to leave the Jedi. And flash forward 8-9 years when we got season 7 of the Clone Wars, and we got to see her all over again. It was fantastic, because we hadn't really, we'd seen her in Rebels obviously, but we hadn't seen the prequel era Ahsoka for that long. So it was just nice to know that she was always going to be there in the future for us to enjoy another medium. Everything about this episode in my eyes is absolutely grand in scope and cinematic. Again, I know I'm repeating what I've said about previous episodes, but this is on another level, I think. Some of the set pieces, some of the orchestral music that was going on, some of the long distance and close shots of the Jedi Temple, and the fights that were going on in the episode, even the grand military hall where the prosecution of Ahsoka happened was absolutely great. You know, top-notch stuff. Really felt like you were in the movies. I don't know if you agree.
I was going to say the music in the series, as the series went on, I felt it became more theatrical, for one, and more akin to what we hear in the music. It's very John Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was the first episode they actually got an orchestra together.
Throughout the episode arc with Ahsoka, you might notice the music sounds a little bit different. The difference is that Kevin Kiner, our composer, went out and he's used a full orchestra to do the music, which is something we do not normally do on the show. It's very time-consuming and it's very expensive for our TV series to do so. But Kevin flew to Prague on his own time, on his own dime, and used the full orchestra for these final episodes. So if you notice a difference in the music and you say, wow, this is fuller, this is bigger than Clone Wars normally feels, it's all because of Kevin Kiner.
I think before that they used synthesized instrumental music. So that was a nice little touch. You know, they knew this was going to be a special episode and a big moment. So that was great. I thought it was quite shocking how the Jedi completely abandoned Ahsoka.
Yeah. I thought that was it was almost like they gave up so quickly.
Yeah, I think
With the possible exception of Yoda, obviously, other than Anakin, and
yeah,
maybe
no, I agree.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin were, but even Yoda and Obi-Wan were they because the Jedi have now. I think I've mentioned this in a previous episode. There's so much procedure, and they have to do what the Senate tells them.
They felt compelled almost to agree with the other
Tarkin,
members of the council.
That's right. They feel they're in such a position now where they feel they haven't got a choice. They have to do what the military or the Republic or the Senate itself tells them to do. And as we all know, as an audience, the Senate, the Republic, and the military will be controlled by one guy. Yep. The trial was sticking with the trial. It was quite sad to watch because you got the impression that, as you just sort of alluded to, Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda knew what they were doing was wrong, but as we just said, they couldn't do anything about it. So yeah, that was kind of a big moment for me. If we jump over to a bit later in the episode, when Anakin finds Ventress and he believes that she's the one that's done the bombing. I mean, we he brutalizes Ventress. I mean, he's someone, when someone he cares about is in danger, he has absolutely no problem with switching to the dark side.
Exactly, and that's what's so great about this. The people that he gets close to when they're in trouble, he flips, doesn't he?
He does, and
which is awesome.
Oh, it is absolutely awesome, and again, it just adds that depth to the character that we didn't get in the prequels. So that's absolutely great, and I think, you know, ever since episode 1, when Yoda said, I sense great fear in his training. You know, this is something that they've had to build upon, and it's nice to have these Clone Wars episodes to add those further bricks to get you to the point where he does finally turn because he wants to save Padme's life. By joining the dark side, and it just makes you understand that decision a bit more.
I
could
see that.
The whole Anakin confronting Barriss Offee, and then fighting her around the temple. Before I tell you what I thought, what did you think of that scene?
Oh god, yeah. Well, anything with lightsabers is awesome for one, but we see. Well, I don't know really much about her character. It's a tricky one. Obviously, Anakin was way more powerful as well.
Yeah.
So it sort of should it have been easier to defeat her? I don't know. We've talked about that in a different episode with different characters, haven't we? But
yeah.
Because she hadn't turned to the dark side or anything, had she?
No, she's not. I'll come back to that in a bit if you don't mind. I have some. Well, no, let's do it now. Let's do it. I've written some notes here. I've put Barriss doing what she's doing is not because she's joined the dark side, but because of what the war has done to the Jedi. Yeah, she believes they have lost their way. The Jedi. Yeah, she believes they've lost their way and becomes the villains. And if I quote what she says,
I did it because I have come to realize what many people in the Republic have come to realize. That the Jedi are the ones responsible for this war. That we've so lost our way that we have become villains in this conflict. That we are the ones that should be put on trial. All of us! And my attack on the temple was an attack on what the Jedi have become. An army fighting for the dark side. Fallen from the light that we once held so dear. This Republic is failing! It's only a matter of time.
Wow, I mean, she's basically just articulated everything that the prequels is about in those sentences. Top quality Star Wars moment. One of those moments that would probably go in a top 20 Martin's favorite Star Wars moments of all time, because this sort of stuff it's not really ever spoken about in the shows, is it, or the films?
No, not really.
And she's sort of giving it the Star Wars spin, if you like, of actually what this is all about, what this whole
good and evil,
and this whole era, and also not only that, but what the Jedi were and what they've become, and how as a honorable Jedi she feels she has to do because she feels they've lost their way.
Which is contradictory to what Jedi should be. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
by doing that, she's going against what the Jedi originally stood for herself. So
but I think she feels that she has to do it because if she doesn't, that she said the dark side is falling over the galaxy and the Republic is failing. So I guess even as a Jedi, she's realized if she doesn't do something to highlight this, then things are going to get bad. But unfortunately, what she doesn't know, obviously, is what we know is that it's already happened. But and also, that not only articulates what Palpatine's plan has been all along, but it also explains why it was so easy for the Republic to turn into an empire, and the Jedi to be disposed of so quickly without any public, what's going on? Why are you getting rid of the Jedi? Because they've all been indoctrinated the public to think that the Jedi were bad and that the the Republic was weak because of the way they were doing things. So this empire would make them stronger. So I mean, I've written on my end of my notes, I've got some hands clapping just to sort of highlight that point. I think that's absolutely great scene. And I really like Barriss Offee as a character. And I suspect, and I'm going to throw a prediction out for Ahsoka. I think we'll see her in Ahsoka, the series.
Well, they were really good friends, weren't they? Were they best friends? I can't really remember.
Yeah, well, they were best friends, obviously, before this, but but I just feel that there's unfinished business there, and obviously we never got to see what happened to her. We know she got arrested, but where was she when everything happened? So that's going to be interesting. So as I always do, I always like to pinpoint one area of an episode that I absolutely loved, and this, unsurprisingly, is going to obviously be the final scene. When everything's been resolved, Barriss has been found guilty, and Ahsoka is welcomed back to the Jedi Temple, and they're all standing in the council room, and there's a touching moment where all the Jedi are sort of in their own way apologizing for what happened, and then the absolute pig-headedness of Mace Windu, who insisted, instead of showing remorse, said that it's all turned out to be just a great trial, for her trial, if you like, the Jedi trials that they have to take. And you could see the look on her face as soon as she saw that no, the Barriss was probably right. The Jedi have lost their way. They're not who I joined when I was, a youngling all those years ago. So I think she would have gone, but I think Mace Windu was the final nail in the coffin for that one.
No. And the way, obviously the way Anakin was desperate to have her back, really. So it was probably another reason that Anakin sort of fell by the wayside.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's another one of those major moments in his life that made him question the Jedi Council, what he was doing, and it was another person that he loved, just like his mother. And just like Padme, that he'd lost. So it was just another nail in his coffin to the dark side, I'm afraid. But that moment where he offers back her Padawan braid, and she looks at him, and all the council in the background, and I know it's an animated series, but it was quite a touching moment. I wasn't getting upset or anything. Don't get me wrong, but it was like, wow, that's quite a heartwarming moment. And the moment where she pushed his hand back and closed it and decided not to take it. That was quite a touching moment.
Well, like we said before, this isn't a cartoon made for kids, and there's a lot of depth in there. There's a lot of deepness in terms of the emotions, if you like. So it's just another thing that this animated series brings.
There's so many little subtle moments as well, like the moment where Ahsoka walks off and Anakin runs after her, and you just see from behind Obi-Wan, he goes to follow Anakin because he feels like he's Anakin's father figure, but Plo Koon stops him because he knows it's something that Anakin needs to deal with. That, as you say, that's not the sort of thing you see in a cartoon. That's something that an adult sensibility would would notice, not so much. Well, I mean, I'm probably probably a kid would notice that. I'm probably being a bit harsh, but it's definitely more for the older person, I would say.
Well, I guess we're really, the year that this was all released, was it 2010?
Yesterday was the 10th anniversary that the episode came out. So wow, how was that for timing?
Timing, yeah.
It was interesting that you found out that Ahsoka knew about Padme and Anakin all the time. And while that probably isn't surprising if you think about it, because she spent all the time with Anakin, so she would have noticed something going on. It also informed, Anakin and their relationship a bit more at the end, where he said, "You don't know how much I want to, leave the order," but he couldn't tell her why, and she had to just say, "I know why." I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I felt that was really interesting, because Anakin for the first time realized, okay, he's not being quite as careful as perhaps he thought he was, by hiding it. But it also shows how close a relationship Anakin and Ahsoka had. So yeah, it was a nice little moment. And I think that also in season 7, if I remember, in the Bad Batch arc of the Clone Wars, there's a moment where Anakin has a communication with Padme, and he comes out and Obi-Wan says, "Oh, how is Padme?" So Obi-Wan knew that Padme and him, I think we might have mentioned that actually when it came out, but that's really interesting. Something that you would never have picked up on in the movies, that Obi-Wan would have known. But in the Clone Wars,
I feel like in Revenge of the Sith, there was a moment of dialogue where he alluded to it. I can't remember for sure.
He does go and visit Padme off screen, and Anakin senses that he'd been there, and I think Padme said he'd been to see her because he was worried about Anakin. And I suppose you could argue, well, why would Obi-Wan go and see Padme about Anakin? So yeah, you're probably right. But it was an off-screen moment. So, but yeah, so that was really nice. And I think in terms of directing, I think Dave Filoni directed this episode because at the time I think they probably knew this might be the last Clone Wars episode, because it was just as Disney were about to buy Lucasfilm. And the moment where you see the sunset in the background at the Jedi Temple, and you see her walking off, and you just look over at the camera, looks over Anakin's shoulder as she walks down the steps, and you have the orchestral music playing, and instead of the bombastic end credits, for the first time ever, you get just a quiet orchestral music playing.
I did wonder about that actually.
Every episode of the Clone Wars ends the same way, with that ring out. Right? How many times have you been sitting at home watching the show, and you get kind of, hopefully, if I've done my job, worked into a nice emotional state, and then you're just smacked right out of it by that ring out? For years, I've been trying to get rid of it. Not on every episode. It's fine. But just on certain episodes, I thought this arc was the arc where it had to happen. And I knew it as soon as I read the scripts, and as soon as George sat down and we came up with the idea, I sat there and I thought to myself secretly, this episode's gonna fade out to black. I know George now. And I'm like, there's no way I can sell this to him when we watch it in a rough cut. It's not gonna happen. So when he watched the rough cut for the first time, I didn't put it on there. I knew that to sell this to him right, we needed the lighting, we needed the sky, we needed the full orchestration by Kevin Kiner. So when he watched it in color, that's when we faded out.
If we hadn't have got season 6 and 7, this would have been an absolutely fantastic way to finish the Clone Wars, and I don't think I would have been disappointed.
No.
I mean, I'm gonna stop there, but I could talk about this episode for at least another hour. But I know, I know we're trying to keep these down to about 20-25 minutes, and if anybody who's watching this, let's face it, if you're watching this, you've seen it. But just on the off chance you haven't seen this arc, I can only heartily recommend that you watch this because it's absolutely phenomenal stuff. Brilliant Star Wars. George Lucas and Dave Filoni just knocked it out of the park with this one.
Yeah, awesome. Let us know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these episodes in the comments section below. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks a lot.
Bye.